Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah here. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Gimel, and Mirz Hashem today we will be learning Daf Ayin Vav Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Shabbos. We pick up today on Ayin Vav Amid Aleph, 2 lines off the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Reish Tzadik Tes Sif Ches. Our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanisudim Batzaru Ba'Shivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayam Ubein Bayabasha, Hamakim Yerachem Alehem V'Yitzihem Mitzara L'Rvacha, Me'afelu La'Oiro Mishibad L'Geula, Hashta Bagolo V'Zman Kariv and Amar Amein. Our learning should be a schus for Fuah Shalemer for Chava Hadassah Bas Rezel Serel, for Moshe Meir Ben Esther Fradel, for Tzvi Ben Leah Miriam. Our learning should also be a schus for Yisrael Ben Rachel, Yonasan Ben Michal, and Yoel Ben Michal. The Rebbeinu Shalom should watch over them, together with all of our other brothers and sisters who find themselves in harm's way. B'chal Makayim Shehem. So, we're continuing on the same theme that we left off with yesterday. And that is, we've been discussing a case where it's coming to Motzei Shabbos. It is Motzei Shabbos. Somebody's going to make Havdalah, and after Havdalah, he's going to have Malav Malka. So he's making a Bari Pri Hagafen on his Yayin, on his Kais Shel Havdalah. He intends on having Yayin during Malav Malka as well. We discussed yesterday the halacha over here. Does he make the Bari Pri Hagafen that he makes on the Havdalah, does it cover the wine that he's going to drink as part of Malav Malka? How about the bracha achrona on the kais shel Havdalah? Now we go on to Sifches, and we continue on that theme. Says the Mechaber, Kishe poiter hayayin shebesaycha mazayin she'ein tzarich levarich alav. When we have this case where somebody is going to make a Bari Pri Hagafen on his kais of Havdalah, and therefore we're saying that Bari Pri Hagafen is going to pater the yayin that he has as part of Malav Malka. This is what we said yesterday. We said the Bari Pri Hagafen on the kais of Havdalah, that is considered to be connected to the yayin that he's going to drink b'soich hasuda, b'soich the Malav Malka. So he's making, like as we discussed yesterday, he's making Havdalah, let's say, by his kitchen table, and right next door over there, there's the dining room table set for Malav Malka. There's a beautiful bottle of Cabernet on the table for Malav Malka. So he's making a Hagafen now as part of Havdalah, and he knows that right after that, he's going to go wash the Kos Yadayim, make a Moitzi, have Malav Malka. He's going to drink a cup of Cabernet during his Malav Malka. The Bari Pri Hagafen on the Havdalah wine is going to pater the Bari Pri Hagafen on the wine that he wants to drink as part of Malav Malka. So says the Mechaber, in such a case, when the Hagafen on the Havdalah wine is going to pater the wine that you're going to drink later during the Suda, she'ein tzarich levarech alav, and therefore you're not going to have to make a new Bari Pri Hagafen on the yayin that you're going to drink as part of Malav Malka, it therefore follows, says the Mechaber, Gam ein tzarich levarech bracha achrona al kais shel Havdalah. You're also not going to have to make a separate bracha achrona on the yayin of Havdalah. We discussed this yesterday. Why? Because the Birkas HaMazayin after Malav Malka is going to cover the yayin of Havdalah. Even though the yayin of Havdalah came before Netilas Yadayim, still, since it's considered connected to the Malav Malka, the Bari Pri Hagafen on the Havdalah wine is patering the wine that you're drinking during the Malav Malka, after you wash and after you make a Moitzi. So since it's connected, the Birkas HaMazayin at the end of Malav Malka is also going to cover the yayin of Havdalah that you had before the Suda. We really explained all of this yesterday. Let's take a look quickly at the Mishnah Berurah here, where he's going to spell it out for us inside. Mishnah Berurah is Kat Chavzai, Kisha Poiter, Hainu. This means that in such a case, in such a case, we're saying that the wine that you drank before the Suda, aka the Havdalah wine, and the wine that you drink in the middle of the Suda, the Malav Malka wine, it's all considered part and parcel of Malav Malka. It's all one shtia. And therefore, benching at the end of the Malav Malka is going to cover the need for a bracha achrona on the kais of Havdalah. And this is true even if when you bench after Malav Malka, you're not benching with a kais. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you were benching with a kais after Malav Malka, so what's going to happen? You're going to have Malava Malka, you're going to drink wine, then you're going to bench. At the end of benching, you're going to make a Bari Priagofen on the kais for benching, and after you drink that kais, you're going to make an alagefen, right? That kais definitely needs a bracha achrayna. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even if you're not benching on a kais, if you're benching on a kais, so then you're going to make an alagefen. Once you're making an alagefen after the kais of Birkas Hamazon, so you understand, okay, I can understand that alagefen is going to cover the kais of Havdalah that came before Malava Malka. Why not? This needs an alagefen, that needs an alagefen. Says the Mishnah Berurah, don't forget that. Even if you're not benching with a kais, so you're not going to make an alagefen. You don't need an alagefen. Why? Because continues the Chavetz Chaim, ha-birkas hamazayin atzmai poitroi. Because benching is going to cover the bracha achrayna on the kais of Havdalah. Aval, however, and here's where things get a little thorny. Aval, however, im ein lo yayin al toich hamazayin. How about if what happened is like this? You made Havdalah. By Havdalah, of course, you made a Bari Priagofen. Then you drank the kais of Havdalah. Then you washed the Tilas Yadayim. Then you made Amoitzi. Then you sat down to eat your Malava Malka. And in the Malava Malka, you did not drink any wine. So now the only wine that you drank was the wine of Havdalah that you drank before the Netilas Yadayim and the Hamoitzi. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Avalim ein lo yayin al toich hamazayin. If you don't drink any wine during the Malava Malka, v'gam ein lo kais leberkas hamazayin, and you're also not benching on a kais, so you're not going to drink wine after the Malava Malka, after benching. Sheyiftar gam oisay derech agav bebracha achrayna shaloi. So you're not going to be making an alagefen. Then yesh oimrim de'enoi niftar bebirkas hamazon. Then there are those that say that benching after Malava Malka will not cover the kais of Havdalah, v'tzarik levarich bracha achrayna al kais Havdalah, and then you have to make an alagefen on the kais of Havdalah. V'zeu tamtzis bir divrei HaShulchan Aruch. This is a concise explanation of what the Mechaber is discussing over here in Sif Ches. So now let's go back into the Mechaber. Let's see how the Mechaber says this. So the Mechaber opened up Sif Ches with telling us something that we really already learned yesterday. And again, let's just chazer it ibris, so we have it clear in our heads. If you make Havdalah, it's Motzei Shabbos, you go ahead, you make Havdalah. By Havdalah, you make a Bari Priagofen over a kais. Now, you're making this Havdalah at the kitchen table, and right near you is the dining room table. The dining room table is set for Malava Malka. By Malava Malka, you're drinking wine. There's a beautiful bottle of Cabernet on the Malava Malka table. So the halacha is, you're going to make the Bari Priagofen on the Havdalah kais. That Bari Priagofen is going to cover the Cabernet that you're going to drink during Malava Malka. So now, you drank wine of Havdalah before Netilas Yadayim. You drank Cabernet after Netilas Yadayim and Amoitzi as part of Malava Malka. After Malava Malka, you're going to bench. The benching is going to cover all the wine that you had up until now. It's going to cover the kais of Havdalah. It's going to cover the Cabernet of Malava Malka. It's all going to be covered by benching. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, where the Mechaber is going to go now is, but what if you don't drink any wine during Malava Malka? Now that's an interesting case, because now the only wine that you drank before the Suda. So now when you bench after the Malava Malka, that benching is not automatically covering any wine. If you drank wine as part of Malava Malka, so then the benching at the end of Malava Malka is automatically covering the wine that you drank during Malava Malka. It also covers the kais of Havdalah that you had before Malava Malka. But what if you didn't drink any wine during Malava Malka? Now the only wine that you drank was the Havdalah wine before Malava Malka. Then there are some people that say you need a separate bracha achrayna on the Havdalah wine. Let's see it inside in the Mechaber. In the bottom line, he says like this. Let's say, again, it's Motzei Shabbos, first thing you're going to do is make Havdalah. You only have one kais. That's all you have. You have one cup of wine. V'savor sheyaviu lo yayin yoser. But you have company coming from Malava Malka, and you have this one guest coming from Malava Malka. You know every time he comes, he always brings a nice bottle of Merlot. So you're about to make Havdalah. you have exactly one kais of yayin. That's all you have. You've got one kais of yayin. But your expectation is that during Malav Malka, you're going to have more wine, because your guest is going to bring a bottle of Merlot. Now, it's very important to understand that this has to be the case. And the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us this has to be the case. It can't be that you have no expectation that more wine is coming from Malav Malka. Because if you have zero expectation that you're getting wine during Malav Malka, and all you have is one kais, then we learned previously there are those that say, don't make Havdalah yet. First eat Malav Malka, if the Malav Malka bench on a kais, and make Havdalah on that kais. Right? We learned that. Also, if you have zero expectation that wine is coming during Malav Malka, then if you made Havdalah and you drank the wine, you certainly have to make an alagefen on the wine, because what are you holding it off for? You're not. Your wine drinking is done. If your wine drinking is done, make an alagefen. So the case over here, the Mechaber spells out, the case over here is you had one kais of yayin for Havdalah, but your expectation was that there's a bottle of Merlot coming from Malav Malka. That's why what you did is you went ahead, you took the kais that you have available to you, and you made Havdalah, and you made a Bar Priagafen. And now you don't want to make an alagefen, because your expectation is, I'm going to drink more wine during Malav Malka, and I learned in the Shulchan Aruch that the Bar Priagafen that I make on the Havdalah wine covers the wine that I'm going to drink during Malav Malka, and then benching is going to cover the Havdalah wine and the Malav Malka wine. So that's my plan. My plan is, I'm making a Bar Priagafen as part of Havdalah. I'm using that Bar Priagafen to cover the Merlot that I'm expecting is coming during Malav Malka. And I'm holding off on making an alagefen because I expect benching at the end of Malav Malka to cover all the wine. That was your expectation. That's the way the Mechaber spells it out here. You only have one kais of yayin. And your expectation is that more wine is coming from Malav Malka. So you went ahead and you made Havdalah on the one kais that was available to you. And then guess what happened? And then your guest showed up, no bottle of Merlot. So now you don't have any more wine. And now you're not drinking any wine during Malav Malka. Ubirich birkas hamazon b'loy kais. So now at the end of Malav Malka, what do? You went ahead and you benched without a kais, because you don't have a kais. So now, at the time that the shaila comes up, what's the shaila? Well, the shaila is, I made Havdalah before Malav Malka, before Netilas Yadayim and Amoitzi for Malav Malka. I made Havdalah. I didn't make an alagefen after Havdalah. Why? Because I expected that I was going to be drinking during Malav Malka, and I expected to bench at the end of Malav Malka, and I bench and cover everything. But guess what happened? I didn't have any wine to drink during Malav Malka, so I in fact did not drink wine during Malav Malka. And then I benched. Now the question is, did benching cover my Havdalah wine? It didn't have any wine to automatically cover, because there was no wine as part of the Malav Malka Suda. Does it cover the wine that I drank before the Malav Malka, the Havdalah wine? Says the Mechaber, Yesh Misha Omer, there is a Torah that says, Shetzarech levarech bracha achrein al kais shel Havdalah. Now, after benching, you have to make an alagefen. Why do you have to make an alagefen? Because benching did not cover your Havdalah wine. Why didn't benching cover your Havdalah wine? Because you didn't drink any yayin toich hamazayin during the Suda. Had you drank wine during Malav Malka, then benching would cover that wine, and it would also cover the Havdalah wine. But you didn't drink any wine during Malav Malka. So it didn't cover any Malav Malka wine. It also doesn't cover the Havdalah wine. So now, even though you benched, you got to go ahead and make an alagefen to cover your Havdalah wine. That's a Yesh Misha Omer. It's a Torah. No, Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us we don't paskin like that Torah. Let's take a look here. I know it sounds very complex. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah back in Ayin Vav Amud Aleph. Mishnah Berurah is Katan Chav Ches. So again, the way the Mechaber spelled out the case was, you went ahead and you made Havdalah. But when you made Havdalah, even though you only had one kais of yayin, your expectation was, there's more wine coming from Malav Malka. That was your expectation. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the ilav hachi, because if that wasn't the case, if you only had one kais of yayin, and you had no expectation that more wine was coming? Di lav hachi haloi mavur b'reish tzadik vav siv gimel. We learned already previously in Siman reish tzadik vav siv gimel. Di yesh oimrim di yoichal kaidem avdala v'achar kach yivarach berkes hamazav yavdal al kaisechad ayin sham. We learned over there in reish tzadik vav, if you're going into havdala and melav amalka, and you only have one kais, well, we learned at reish tzadik vav, if you're always makbid to bench on a kais, in that case, don't make havdalah first. First, eat malav malka. At the end of malav malka, do birkas hamazain and havdalah on one kais. How would you do that? You would bench on the kais, and then after benching, you would go ahead and you would say bari priagafen hamavdil. You would make havdalah on that same kais, right? That's what you would do in such a scenario. We learned at Reish Tzadik Vav. Va'oid. And there's another reason why the case over here must be where you expected to get more wine from Malav Malka. If you didn't expect to be getting more wine for Malav Malka, then how is it that you made Havdalah, washed, made a moitzi, ate Malav Malka, benched, and didn't make an alagefen? If you made Havdalah and you drank a kais of Havdalah, and you have zero expectation to be getting more wine, so then you had to make an alagefen right away. How did you go ahead, wash, make a moitzi, and eat a suda and bench before making an alagefen? If you had no expectation that more wine was coming, you should have made an alagefen right after you drank the kais of Havdalah, so the mechaber's case would never come up. So again, I'm repeating myself a lot because this seems to be a very complex scenario to me. Again, what happened over here is you went ahead and you made Havdalah. As part of Havdalah, you made a bari priagafen on a kais. Right now, it was the only kais that you had, but you expected that more wine was coming from a lava malka. Therefore, since you had that expectation, you didn't make an alagefen right away after Havdalah. Because why should I make an alagefen? I'm going to drink wine during Malav Malka, and then I'm going to bench. My benching is going to cover all my wine. But then what happened? More wine didn't come. So since more wine didn't come, you ate your whole Malav Malka, and then you benched. After you benched, you scratched your head, and you said, hey, wait a second. I drank a kais of yayin for Havdalah before Malav Malka. During Malav Malka, I didn't drink any wine. Now I benched. Did my benching cover my kais of Havdalah? Shaila. Says the Torah, no, it does not. But that's only a sheet of the Torah. That seems to be a yachid over here. The Torah says that the benching doesn't cover the kais of Havdalah. The logic of the Torah seems to be, since the benching didn't cover any yayin toichasuda, because there wasn't any, you didn't have any wine from Lava Malka, it can't cover the yayin of Havdalah that was before the Suda. And remember what we said yesterday. Even though normally that's not the case, normally you make Kiddush Friday night, right? You drink wine before Netilas Yadayim and before Hamoitzi. Even if you don't have any wine during the Suda, benching at the end of the Suda covers your Kiddush wine. So how come over here suddenly it doesn't cover the Havdalah wine? So we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah, he'll explain it. It's because we look at the Havdalah wine as being totally removed from the Suda. Kiddush has to be B'makom Suda. So there's that intimate connection between Kiddush and the Suda. So automatically the Kiddush wine is considered part of the Suda, benching covers it. But Havdalah has no connection to a Suda. So if you made a Hagafen on the Yayin of Havdalah, and then you drank more wine during the Suda, so then okay, we see all the wine drinking as being one drinking, and since benching covers the wine that you drank during the Malav Malka, it'll also cover the wine of Havdalah that came before the Suda. But if there's no wine during the Malav Malka, then we don't see how benching should cover the wine that you drank before the Suda. That's the Shita of the Torah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, nice Chavtes. The Torah says, Shetzarek Levarech, you need to make a new bracha of Alagefen now to cover the Havdalah wine. Va'af degabe kais kiddush pasuk HaShulchan Aruch le'el siman reish ayin beisif yode'ein tzarek levarech bracha achrayna acharav b'chol gavni the birkas habazah poitrasai. Even though this is absolutely not what we say when it comes to Kiddush, Kiddush shani. Kiddush is different. Shehitzarek Suda. Because like we always say, Kiddush b'makom Suda. So it's always connected to the Suda. Dein Kiddush ala b'makom Suda. Masha ein ken Havdalah. V'hineh. Hayesh Oimrim Azeh, you should know that this Yesh Oimrim who das HaTorah, this is the opinion of the Torah, Shecholak Bisvarzu Shekasavnu, who makes this difference between Havdalah and Kiddush that we just described. But V'ayin b'Magen Avram, Sheichiach, the Magen Avram proves the Harosh Le'Svir Le'Lechalak Bazeh. The Rosh did not agree to this difference. V'chein b'Bir Agra Daitoi Ka Magen Avram. The Bir Agra agrees with the Magen Avram, who's chaylik on the Torah. V'alkein, and therefore near it would seem she'em loy birich kaidem asuda loy yavarech achakach, that if you did not make the alagefen before you started the Malava Malka, and you went ahead and you ate Malava Malka and you had no wine and then you benched, you're not going to make a new bracha. Loy yavarech achakach, you're not going to make a new bracha. Okay, I hope that was clear, but based on everything we learned yesterday, this together with that, I think everybody should have been able to understand it. Let's move weiter. Sif Tes, second line down, middle of the line. Says the Mechaber. Now we get much simpler for the rest of the Siman. Says the Mechaber. Im roitza lisoid tekef lahavdala. If your plan is to eat Malava Malka right after Havdalah. So again, let's picture this. Your wife set a beautiful table for Malava Malka. You came home, there's a beautiful spread out on the dining room table for Malava Malka, but first you have to make Havdalah. So you bring Havdalah to the dining room table, you're going to make Havdalah, and your plan is Havdalah and then wash for Malava Malka. Okay? Looks almost like Kiddush, right? But obviously it's not Kiddush, it's Havdalah. Right? Says the Mechaber, if your plan is to have a Suda immediately following Havdalah, Tzarech li zaher, you have to be careful. Shalo yavi lechem lashulchan kaidem Havdalah. Don't bring bread and challah to the Malava Malka table before Havdalah. Why? Because you're going to have a problem. If you want to eat two items, if you want to make a hamoitzi on lechem, and you want to make a bar priya gafen on yayin, which one comes first? The answer is lechem comes first, right? We learned this in Hilchos Brachos, the order of kedima, of preference when it comes to brachos. Eretz chita usa'ira gefen te'ena v'rimayin. The ones that are earlier in the pasuk and closer to the word eretz, that's what you make a bracha on first. Well, what's the closest? Eretz chita usa'ira. Chita is wheat, sa'ira is barley. They're both grains that you can make bread out of. So the very first item you're supposed to make a bracha on is bread, not wine. Now you're coming to a table, and if your plan is I'm making Havdalah and I'm making a Suda, that's called I want to have wine now for Havdalah, and I want to have bread now for Malava Malka. Well, in that case, you're really supposed to make the bracha on the bread first. So says the Mechaber, if that's your plan, don't bring the bread to the table. If the bread's not by the table, there's no shaila. But if the bread is on the table, you're creating a problem. Really, you should be making the bracha on the bread before the yayin. So says the Mechaber, Im roitza lisay tekef la'avdalah. If your plan is to have the Suda immediately following Havdalah, tzarich lizar, you have to take care. Shelo yavi lechem l'shulchan kaidem Havdalah. Do not bring bread to the table before Havdalah. V'im hevi. But what if you did? What should you do now? Pyrus alav mappa, cover it up with a covering. Umechasenu. If you don't cover it up, then you have to make the bracha of hamaitzi first. So cover it up. The truth is, this is a halacha that's very familiar to us, because that's one of the reasons why we have a challah cover. Why do we have a challah cover? Because we're faced with this issue every time we make a Shabbos Suda. You're going to make Kiddush and you're going to make a bar priya gafen before you make the bracha on the lechem. Now you have to do that because you're not allowed to eat before Kiddush. So halacha is forcing you to do that. But still in all, we cover the lechem. So that way it shouldn't be that we're giving kedima to wine over bread. Says the Mishnah Berurah, cut and limud. Lisay tekef. If this whole shaila is only germane if your plan is to make Havdalah and then immediately have a Suda. Avalim einay sayed tekef. But if your plan is to make Havdalah and then go take a shower and then go have Malava Malka, ain't sarach lechasaysay. Then you don't have to cover the bread even if it's on the table. Why? The leishach kedima bazeh. This whole shaila of kedima bebrachas is only if you want to eat both items. This is why, they always talk about by the shidduch. The boy comes into the house for the shidduch to meet your daughter, and you go and you put out fruits on the table in front of him, and you want to see if he knows halacha. You want to see if he knows the halachas of kedima in brachas. Well, what if the guy goes ahead and he makes a bracha on one fruit that really should have been first? So, he doesn't know the halacha. No, maybe he doesn't like grapes. The reason he made the bracha on that one before the apple, before he made the bracha on the grapes. Grapes is from Shivas Aminim, apples are not. He's making a hagafen. Why did he make Bari Priya Eitz? Why did he make the Bari Priya Eitz on the grapes before he made it on the apple? Because you don't like grapes. So I have no interest in eating grapes. If I have no interest in eating grapes, I don't have to give kedima to the grapes before I give to the apples. So it's the same thing over here. You're right. I have wine for Havdalah on the table and I have bread for Malava Malka on the table. But I'm not eating Malava Malka now, so I'm not washing now. I'm going to take a shower first. So then there's no shail of kedima, and therefore I don't have to cover the challah. It's cut lamed aleph, but if you are going to eat right away, tzarich lagdimai. You have to give preference to the bread. After bekan ein lagdimai to asal echel kaidam Havdalah. Bomb shaila. What are you telling me that there's a problem? Because I have to give kedima to the bread over the wine. I'm not allowed to eat the bread. I'm not allowed to eat before Havdalah. So I have to drink the wine first. Nevertheless, since normally we would give hakdama to the bread, we're denigrating the bread by going ahead and making a bar priagafen on the wine of Havdalah. Even though the halacha requires us to do that, but it's still a bizayon to the pas. And therefore, we have to cover it. Going now, moving along to Sif Yud, 4 lines down the middle of the line, says the Mechaber. Aser lasois shum malacha kaidim sheyavdil. You're not allowed to do any malacha on Motzei Shabbos before Havdalah. This is even if it's 72, 86, or 93 minutes after Shkia. So it's definitely Ois Shabbos. You're not allowed to do any malacha before Havdalah. V'hivdil batfila. But if you david Mariv and you made Havdalah in Shemana Esrei, you said Atachan Antanu, mutter. Then it's already mutter to do malacha. Alpha pisha dayin lo hivdal al hakais, even though you didn't make Havdalah al hakais. So this is a very important halacha. Most people know it, but some people might not. Even if it's Ois Shabbos already, even if Shabbos is over, it's way after Tzeis HaKechavim. You're not allowed to do malacha until you make Havdalah. What does it mean until you make Havdalah? At least you said Atachan Antanu in your Ma'ariv Shemana Esrei, so you were Mavdil Batfila. But if you weren't Mavdil Batfila, and you didn't make Havdalah al HaKos, you can't do malacha yet. Now this is very important, because sometimes what happens is, somebody damas Ma'ariv, and after he finishes Shemana Esrei, oh whoops, I forgot Atachan Antanu. Okay? Now he wants to take his car keys from shul, and he wants to go out to the car, and he wants to drive home. Hello, you can't do malacha, because you didn't make Havdalah. You didn't say Atachan Antanu, so you weren't Mavdil B'Tfila. You didn't go home yet. You didn't do Havdalah al HaKos yet. You're not allowed to do malacha. That's the halacha over here in the Mechaber. But let's say the scenario I just gave you. You want to drive home, and you didn't say Atachan Antanu. What do? Omer hamavdil ben hakodesh ubein hachoil. You could say Baruch Hamavdil bein HaKodesh ubein HaChol. And you don't say Hashem, you don't say Hashem's name, you don't say Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam. You just say the words that I just said. Baruch Hamavdil bein HaKodesh ubein HaChol. Once you do that, you could already do malacha. Okay, let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Katan Lamed Beis, Shum Malacha. You're not allowed to do any malacha at all. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Afilu Chafetzim Asurim Midivrei Seifrim. Even Isurei D'Rabbanan. You're not allowed to do any malacha before Havdalah. Ayis Katan Lamed Gimel Kaidim Sheyavdil. You can't do any malacha before Havdalah. Hainu Afilu Mishetechshach. This means even after Tzeis HaKechavim, like I said, even after 72, 86, 93, whatever zman you keep, it doesn't matter. Shabbos is over. Yes, technically Shabbos is over. But you didn't make Havdalah, you can't do malacha. Kevin Shalai Hivdal Adayin, since you didn't make Havdalah, Chol b'miktsas kedusha Shabbos alav, you still have a certain amount of kedusha Shabbos upon you. Va'asru Chazal b'malacha, and midrabanan, the Chazal said malacha remains aser until you make Havdalah. Oiskat Lamed. If you find yourself in a scenario where you need to do malacha, and you didn't make Havdalah in Shemana Esrei, you didn't say Atachan Antanu, and you did not yet make Havdalah al HaKos, what should you do? Said the Mechaber, Omer Hamavdil. The words of the Mechaber and the Ramah together were Hamavdil bein HaKodesh ubein HaChol. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kalam Dal Balavush Isa. In the Lavush it says, what should you say? Omer Baruch Hamavdil bein HaKodesh ubein HaChol. Nevertheless, bracha. This is not called a bracha, because if you look at the words, it says Omer hamavdil ben hakodesh ben hachayil beloy bracha. What does that mean, beloy bracha? This is not called a real bracha, because you didn't say Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, the name of Hashem and Malchus, Melech Haolam. You didn't say Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hamavdil b'kodesh l'chayil. All you said was Baruch hamavdil bein hakodesh u'bein hakoil. But still, that's enough to allow you to do malacha. Explains the Mishnah Berurah why. The reason why this is sufficient to allow you to go now and do malacha, because midrabanan they said all you need to do is do something as a heker, to do something in recognition of the fact that you're escorting Shabbos out. So you say Baruch hamavdil bein hakodesh u'bein hakoil. That's enough. You escorted Shabbos out. Now you're allowed to do malacha. You don't have to say Baruch hamavdil b'kodesh l'chayil ben oil l'choshech ben Yisrael l'amim ben yom yishvil l'sheish yisima ha'maiseh Baruch hamavdil b'kodesh l'chayil. All you have to say is Baruch hamavdil ben hakodesh u'ben hakoil. Nevertheless, says the Mishnah Berurah, even though, what are we saying over here? We're saying you weren't mavdil b'tfilah, so you didn't say atachanantanu. You didn't do havdal ala kois. All you did was, you said, Baruch hamavdil ben hakodesh u'ben hakoil, now you're allowed to do malacha. But, says the Mishnah Berurah, when we come akam, le'inyan achila, are you allowed to eat now? Remember, you're not allowed to eat before havdalah. So you said, Baruch hamavdil ben hakodesh u'ben hakoil. Are you now allowed to eat? When we come akam, le'inyan achila loy mahani, ad sheyavdal havdalah gemura ala kois v'gam b'tfilah. For it to be permissible for you to eat, you need atachanantanu and havdalah ala kois. Very interesting. You would think that it's much more stringent to allow you to do malacha. No. To do malacha, you just need Baruch hamavdil ben hakodesh u'ben hakoil. To eat, you need atachanantanu, or at least havdalah ala kois. So you're going to say Baruch hamavdil ben hakodesh u'ben hakoil without shem u'malchus. Now, here's an interesting halacha that I think a lot of people don't know. Ubi Yom Tov shechal b'motzei Shabbos. Okay? Yom Tov is on Sunday. So, Motzei Shabbos is over, and now Yom Tov comes in. Now, there are malachas that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, that you are allowed to do on Yom Tov. So it's Motzei Shabbos, and your wife is home, and she looks at the clock, and she sees it's 55 minutes after Shkia, so she knows Shabbos is over. But now it's Yom Tov. But now she wants to start getting ready for the Suda. So she wants to get ready for the Yom Tov Suda, and she wants to light a flame. So she has a candle burning, right? Not allowed to make a new fire. She has a candle burning, and she wants to light something, and she wants to go make a flame. That's a malacha that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos, but you are allowed to do it on Yom Tov. On Yom Tov, it's mutter l'tzarech ha'chol nefesh. So she wants to go do malacha now that was also on Shabbos, but it's mutter on Yom Tov. Does she need some kind of a havdalah? Says the Mishnah, of course she does. We're talking about a woman, she probably didn't have a marriage, she didn't say atachanantanu. This isn't only negated to a woman, it's negated to a man, of course, as well. So, if it's Motzei Shabbos, and now Yom Tov is starting. And it's already after the Zman. And now you want to do malacha that's mutter on Yom Tov, that's also on Shabbos. You didn't say atachanantanu. You didn't say, what is it on Yom Tov? V'atoidienu. You didn't say v'atoidienu. You didn't make havdalah ala kois. What do? Omer baruch hamavdil ben kodesh li kodesh b'loy shem u'malchus u'muter b'malacha. Aval li'inyin ti'ima asar afilu hivdil b'tfilah she'amar v'atoidienu. But you're still not allowed to eat, even if you said v'atoidienu ad she'yikadosh kedin, until you're going to make the kiddush of yak nahaz, yain kiddush ner havdalah zman. Okay, now let's go into the Ramah. Says the Ramah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines off the bottom. Near the end of the line says the Ramah, Hagah. V'chein nashim she'enon mavdilin b'tfilah. Women who typically they're not mavdil b'tfilah because typically they don't have ma'ariv. So they're not saying atachanantanu. V'chein nashim, women, she'enon mavdilin b'tfilah, who typically do not make havdalah in Shmoneh Esrei because they don't have ma'ariv. Yesh lalamdan, you have to teach them. Sheyomru hamavdil ben kodesh l'chayil kodim sheyasu malacha. You have to tell your wives who don't have ma'ariv You can't just look at the clock and say Shabbos is over. I'm going to start washing the dishes. I'm going to start doing malacha. No, you have to say Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh Ben HaChol first. The Yesh Oimrim. Now there is a Yesh Oimrim. There are those that say the Kol Zeh B'Malacha Gemura. This whole halacha that you're not allowed to do any malacha before you make Havdalah, unless you say Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh HaChol. There's a Yesh Oimrim that says that this only applies to what the Ramah calls a malacha gemura, a real bona fide malacha, like writing or weaving. But simply lighting a flame, or what we call carrying, transferring something from one domain to another domain, you don't need Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh HaChol. This is a Rabbeinu Yerucham. Now, what does this mean? Lighting a flame is not a malacha gemura. What it means is, what the Ramah means by a malacha gemura is a malacha sheyesh by tircha, a real malacha, something that takes work. Writing, especially back in the day, go get the quill and dip it in the ink and write and blot and this and that. Weaving, that's a malacha gemura. Lighting a flame, that's nothing. Doesn't mean that it's not a malacha gemura, not a real malacha. Obviously, havara, lighting a flame, is one of the lamates malachas. It's an issa daraisa on Shabbos. Of course, it's a malacha gemura. What he means is it's a malacha that doesn't have tircha. So there is a Rabbeinu Yerucham that says this whole halacha that you're not allowed to do any malacha on Moshe Shabbos, even though it's after the Zman, until you make Havdalah. That's only by a malacha sheyesh by tircha. That's by real work. But something that's not real work, it doesn't apply. It's such a shita. We don't paskin that way. But there is such a shita. And says the Ramah, 2 lines off the bottom in the middle, Umizeh, from this Rabbeinu Yerucham, Nespashet HaMinig, it came out of Minig, Lahakel, to rule very leniently, Shemadlikin Neris Miyad Shamra Akahal Baruch Hu. Remember, it's Moshe Shabbos, back in the day, no electric bulbs. You're counting on light in the shul for Neris. So they come in my Ma'ariv on Moshe Shabbos. It's already after 72. The Chazan gets up, the Hu Racham. Remember, you're supposed to stretch out for Hu Racham on Moshe Shabbos. So they stretch out for Hu Racham. They say Baruch Hu. Based on this Rabbeinu Yerucham, the Shamish would go and he would start lighting Neris in the shul. He didn't say Atachan Antanu. He certainly didn't make Havdalah ala Kois. He didn't even say Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh Ben HaChol. And he's lighting fires in the shul. How could he do that? It's based on this Rabbeinu Yerucham. You have this Rabbeinu Yerucham that since lighting the fire is a malacha she'ein by tircha, it's not a real labor. It's not real work. It's after Shabbos. Shabbos is over. It's after 72. It's after Rabbeinu Tam. Shabbos is over. So even though you didn't make Havdalah, you didn't say Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh Ben HaChol, you're allowed to do such malacha. This minute came, says the Ramah, from this Rabbeinu Yerucham. Aval ha'ikar kisvara rishona. But that's not how we paskin, says the Ramah. The ikar halacha follows the first opinion, Rabbi Isai. You're not allowed to do any malacha on Moshe Shabbos until you either make Havdalah, so you say Atachan Antanu, you make Havdalah ala Kois, or at least you say Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh Ben HaChol without Shem u'Malchus. Even if it's not a malacha gemura, even if it's a malacha she'ein by tircha, it's not real work. You're not allowed to do it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Lamed Zayin. The Ramah said that we have to teach the women that they have to say Baruch HaMavdil Ben HaKodesh Ben HaChol. Why? Because they don't make Havdalah bat Tefillah. What does that mean, that women don't make Havdalah bat Tefillah? It sounds like women, if they daven Ma'ariv, don't say Atachan Antanu? No, the Mishnah Berurah says that's not what it means. Hainu sheruban lo yinagu lehispal b'motzei Shabbos. Most women don't have the minig to be davening Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos, so they don't say Atachan Antanu. We had this Rabbeinu Yerucham who says that this halacha only applies to a malacha gemura, to something that's real work. What's the reason for this? Since this whole halacha is a drabanan, midaraisa, one Shabbos is over, you're allowed to do malacha. It's a takanas chachamim that you have to make Havdalah first. Rabbeinu Yerucham says they were makel by work that's not real work. Take a look at the Magen Avram. The Magen Avram takes great issue with this minig. Beis Yosef also says, where's this Rabbeinu Yerucham coming from? Who told you that you can make such a chilik between malacha that's work and malacha that's not work? And there's a question whether Rabbeinu Yerucham really meant that. It could be Rabbeinu Yerucham really was talking about somebody who made Havdalah Bat Tefillah already. He said Atachanantanu. Valkain, Masik, and therefore they conclude the Yesh Lidrash Barabim, that we should teach in public. Sheyilbedu b'naiseim loimer amavdal b'kodesh l'chol kaidim sheyasu shom malacha. We should teach everybody and our daughters who are at home that they're not allowed to do any malacha until they say Baruch HaMavdal ben HaKadosh ben HaChoil. U'mikolshkein oisan shemavarois eitzim va'eish u'mechama moismayim deva malacha sheish b'torah k'lukuli alma aser. Certainly back in the day, when once Shabbos was over, they wanted to go get armfuls of firewood and fire up the wood-burning stove and start boiling up water from Motzei Shabbos. That's a malacha sheish b'torah. Definitely it would be aser l'kuli alma v'chei kasvu sha'arei achroinim. Ois cotton mem. The Ramah said that the Iker is Kisfara Rishina. You're not allowed to do any malacha before Avdallah or before Baruch HaMavdal ben HaKodesh ben HaChoil. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cotton mem. Ubal nefesh, somebody who cares about his neshama. Yasik Moshe Kasav Dake Moshe b'Shem Arzarua should follow the ruling that's brought down in the words of the Ramah on the Torah in the Dake Moshe in the name of the Arzarua. V'chein Issa b'Zayar, and we can see this in the Zayar as well. Shaloi lahadlik ner ad achar seder kedusha. One should not do any malacha, even lighting a flame, until after we say va'ata kadosh and the kedusha of Uvalotzion as part of Ma'ariv HaMotzei Shabbos. We learned earlier that that's because the neshamas in Shemayim that are chayiv to be in Gehenim, they don't go back to Gehenim. Remember, they got a reprieve for Shabbos. They don't go back to Gehenim until after Kedusha Desidra, until after the Kedusha of Avalutzion on Motzei Shabbos. We don't want to hasten them going back to Gehenna by starting to do Malacha earlier. So we don't do Malacha until after Kedusha Desidra. Aval, Chazan HaKnesses, but the Gabbai in the Shul, the Shamish, Mutter Lahadlik Ner Acher Shehivdel Batfila, Omer Baruch HaMavdel B'Kodesh L'Chayil, but the Shamish in the Shul, if he said Atachan Antanu, or he at least said Baruch HaMavdel ben HaKadosh ben HaChoil, he could go light Neris, Mishum Kavod HaTzibur, Sheyosh V'Chayshech, to help out the people who are sitting in shul in the dark. V'tiltal HaNer Shari L'Kuli Alma, to go move around the Ner, which is only Muktzah, that for sure everybody would be matir. Ulahavi Yayin b'Yom Tov Sheni Acher Shechashecha, to go get wine. So on Yom Tov Sheni, so the first day of Yom Tov, and now it's Motzui, the first day, going into the second day, right? In Chutz La'aretz, we have 2 days Yom Tov. So the end of the first day Yom Tov, and now going into the second day of Yom Tov, you want to go down to the cellar to get a bottle of wine. Acher Shechashecha, you want to do that after the Zman. Av Shelo Yispal Adayin, so you're home. And the first day of Yom Tov is coming to a close. And you didn't have a Ma'ariv yet. And you didn't say Amavdil, you wouldn't say Amavdil, there's no Avdallah between the first day and the second day. But it's after the Zman already. So you want to go down to the cellar and you want to go get a bottle of wine. You could do that, even though you didn't have a Ma'ariv, v'gam lekidesh, and you didn't make Kiddush yet, afilu ach yishari, ta'ayin bezeh mishum malacha. There's no malacha there. Rak mishum achana miyom tov l'chaveroi. The only thing preventing you from doing that in the afternoon is only because you're doing preparation, you're doing hachana from one day of Yom Tov to the next, which is aser. The kevich and iskadis a yom shari, but in this case, since it's already night, it's already the second day, it's mutter. Maharil hayam mekapel atal shalei b'chamas Shabbos k'dei lehisasek b'mitzvah miyad. The Maharil had the minig that as soon as he could by Ma'ariv, he david Ma'ariv, he said Atachan Antanu. I'm not sure if he waited until after Kedusha Desidra. I assume he did. He would fold his talis right away because he wanted the first thing that he does on Motzei Shabbos to be a mitzvah, to be dealing with the talis. Now we finished the Mishnah Berurah, but now let's go back to the Ramah and let's finish the Ramah here of Siman Reish Tzadi Tes. The bottom line here on Ayin Vav Amud Beis says the Ramah. And by the way, when I finish this Siman, I just have one comment to make that pertains to 2 shiurim ago, where I left an open question and I realized what the answer is. So please, don't turn off the share now when I finish the Ramah. Says the Ramah, there are those that say lidlois mayim b'chamotzai Shabbos, that you should go draw water from the well on every Motzei Shabbos. Why? Ki be'er shel Miriam soivev kol Motzei Shabbos kol ha'be'eros. You thought the be'er of Miriam that accompanied Klal Yisrael in the Midbar, you thought it was gone? It's not gone. The be'er of Miriam is still extant. Where is it? I don't know. The Gemara says that it's in the Kinneret somewhere. But the be'er of Miriam somehow, on Motzei Shabbos, somehow it sounds like it goes around the world, and it goes around all of the wells in the world. Okay? Umisha pagea boy v'yishta bimenu. If you go and you draw water from a well on Motzei Shabbos and you get lucky and you get some of the Be'er Shel Miriam, Yisrape Mikol Tachluav. It's the best antibiotic in the world. You'll be cured from anything that ails you. Says the Ramav, I've never seen this minig done. Another thing the Ramah wants to point out is, he reminds us, take a look earlier in Siman Reis Samach Gimel Sif Yud Zayin, Mi Shemoisif Meichayil Ala Kodesh. Somebody who doesn't want to make Oy Shabbos yet. It's already 96 minutes after Shkia. He's being machmir in being Moisif Meichayil Ala Kodesh. He doesn't want to end Shabbos yet. So for him, it's still Shabbos. He didn't daven Mariv. He didn't say Atachan Antanu. He didn't say Baruch HaMavdom Ben HaKodesh L'Chayil. He certainly didn't make Avdallah Ala Kois. So for him, it's still Shabbos. But the guy next to him davened already at 50, and he already made Oy Shabbos. Could he ask him to do malacha for him? And we said over there that pashtus, it is mutter. Okay. Now, I have a comment on 2 shiurim ago. And that was, 2 shiurim ago, we dealt with the following question. We said, you're not allowed to eat before Havdalah. When does that problem begin? It begins at Shkia, Misha Techshach. Once we're coming to the end of Shabbos, once, the way we paskin, once we're coming to Shkia, we're now going into Ben Hashmoshes, you're no longer allowed to eat until you make Havdalah. What's the big exception to that rule? If you washed for Shalosh Udas before Shkia, you washed a minute before Shkia, you washed, you made a mitzi, now you can eat as long as you want. Why? Because it's part of a Suda. You will kaveh a Suda. Anything that you eat now as part of that Suda is all considered eating that started before Shkia, because that's when you washed. But what if you didn't wash? What if you sat down and you made a bar priagofen and you're drinking wine and you're eating cheese, wine and cheese. So you had a bar priagofen, you had a shahakol, maybe you're eating a baked apple, a bar priates, right? Now, when Shkia comes, you have to interrupt your eating, because this is not a Kviyas Suda. So the very next bite that you take is a new act of eating. You're eating between Shkia and Havdalah. You're not allowed to do that. So in that case, we said you have to be mafsik achilosai. You have to interrupt your eating, and you're not allowed to eat anymore until Havdalah. Came up a question like this. This person, we said, he made a bar priagofen on wine. He's having wine, cheese, a baked apple. He made a bar priagofen on wine. Now, what does he do when he comes to Havdalah? Does he make a new bar priagofen on the kais of Havdalah? Or do we say that the bar priagofen that he made, sounds like before Shkia, right? Does that bar priagofen cover the Havdalah wine? That was the question that we dealt with over here. This was it's on Ayin Hey and Aleph. The bottom line, Reit Tzadik says Siv Gimel. The Mechaber said, Kishemafsik lahavdil. In the case when you need to interrupt your eating in order to make Havdalah. What's that case? You were eating before Shkia, but you were eating without Hamoitzi. It's not part of a Suda. So now you have to stop eating and not let it eat anymore. You have to be mafsik for Havdalah. You have to wait till you make Havdalah. Said the Mechaber, Kishemasik lahavdil, ein tzarich levarich bar priagofen al kais shel Havdalah. You're not going to make a new bar priagofen on the kais of Havdalah. Why? Because it's going to be covered with the bar priagofen that you made. You made a bar priagofen, you're sipping some Cabernet, you're having a baked apple, so now you have to stop eating because it's Shkia. Now, by Tzesek Echavim, you're going to make Havdalah, you don't make a new bar priagofen. V'yesh oimrim shetzarech. But the Mechaber brought down a Maharik, a Tosfos that disagrees and says, no, you do have to make a bar priagofen. Asked Rabbi Weiss, I don't understand what's going on over here. You made a bar priagofen when? Before Shkia. Now you're telling me that 50 minutes later, at least, or 72 minutes later, when I'm ready to make Havdalah, I don't make another bar priagofen? What are you talking about? Of course I was Mesiach Das. It's an hour later, or it's more than an hour later. You're telling me that bar priagofen, after I had to interrupt my eating. So I made a bar priagofen, I was sipping Cabernet, I was eating my baked apple, I looked up at the clock, it's Shkia, I can't eat anymore. When am I going to make Havdalah? I'm going to make Havdalah at least 50 minutes from now. You're telling me I don't have to make another bar priagofen? Why? I definitely was Mesiach Das. That's what was bothering me. I realized, and I left it as an open question when we said that shir. I realized it's a klotz kasha. The reason it's a klotz kasha is because this is the Mechaber. The Mechaber paskins straight out like the Rabbeinu Tam. According to Rabbeinu Tam, what we call Shkia is what the Rabbeinu Tam and the Mechaber calls Tchilas HaShkia. That's not even Ben Hashmashas yet, according to Rabbeinu Tam. According to Rabbeinu Tam, when is Ben Hashmashas? 58 and a half minutes later. According to Rabbeinu Tam, Ben Hashmashas is 13 and a half minutes before Tzeisak Echavim. Now we could understand the Shaila. According to the Mechaber, what happened over here was somebody was drinking Cabernet and eating a baked apple not a minute before Shkia. He was doing it 13 and a half minutes before Tzeisak Echavim. So he is interrupting his eating now, and he's making Havdalah less than 15 minutes from now. That's why there's a Shaila and a Machlokes, whether or not you have to make a new Bar Priagofen on the case of Havdalah. Okay, I'm happy I was able to clear that up. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. This list of limud HaTorah should be banging against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shalom should send Yeshuas, Refuas, Parnasa, and Shaduchim to all those in need. We should be zeichet to see the Bias Goel Tzedek. B'mher v'yameinu, amen. Be well.